So. Today is a very sad day for the people of the Republic of Kenya and all their allies world over. And this has been brought about by the unfortunate death of one gallant four-star military general, the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces of Kenya, Francis Omondi Ogolla. We have various speculations, various questions, and a lot is on our mind as a republic. And with that in mind, allow me to put the voice of Kenyan Opinion TV right into this cooking pot. Now, the first things I am always aware of is that the CDF is always the second most protected person in any republic, Kenya being no exempt. He is a person who always receives all security briefings like the president. In fact, some people will say that even before some of this information gets to the president, it has already found its way to the CDF. Why? Because this is the person at the helm of security in the republic, not even the president. The president sometimes will even be hidden from some of the issues, but the CDF is always briefed on even the slightest of issues. So he does not lack in intelligentsia. He does not lack in any information capacity. But in regards to this particular case, my question is what the CDF was actually doing in Elgeyo Marakwet. I mean, inspecting schools, opening up construction projects, talking to military personnel, trying to inspire them. Rings a familiar bell of something a CDF doesn't really have to do. But anyway, let's say he had to do. It's part of his duty, his mandate. There are more questions that need to be answered. How was this decision to have him calendared for that trip made? Because just like the president, the CDF doesn't just go anywhere. There's always protocols that have to be observed. There's always the security agencies that check, is this worthy discourse for the CDF? Should we allow the CDF to go through that place? Should we allow him to go to a certain place? Should we, what method of transport should we use? Which is the safest? Which is the best route? Who are the people that he is going to interact with? Where are those people? Where do they stand in matter security of the CDF? All these things are questions that are always asked for such an important person as the CDF. And the president, the deputy president, the IG. When these people are going somewhere, all these logistics are always protocoled in significantly. Always, forever and ever, before they make any single trip. And sometimes their trips can even get cancelled because some of these questions have not been properly answered. So the question is, why was the CDF really in Elgeyo Marakwet? How was he calendared to go there? Who chose that method of transport? Because I imagine that he always has a team that always chooses the method of transport that the CDF is going to be using. Like just like the president, for example, there's always a team that decides, let the president use a chopper this time, let him use a road, let him use whatever other means that they choose. There's always protocol. The weather was not bad, so we can always imagine that the CDF's transport team is always properly briefed on the weather patterns and the possible changes. Actually, even way before, and we are actually talking about the Navy. I mean, not the Navy, but the Air Force. The Air Force is one of the most well informed units in matters regards weather. So now the CDF is on a place where the weather is good. The chopper has had no prior mechanical issues, but the chopper crashes tragically, not just crashes, but crashes tragically. We do not see any attempts to save the CDF, because I can imagine that the very first thing when a mechanical issue that is serious in the Air Force happens, the very first thing they will want to do is, who is the most important person among us? And what do? We are the Kenya Air Force. The very first thing I will be thinking of is evacuating the CDF. So the question is, were there parachutes in that chopper? And if there were parachutes, were they functional? Was there an attempt to have the CDF out of that craft? Were there mechanical problems that this chopper had before takeoff? Was it properly inspected? And that is why I asked the very first question of who actually chose this particular aircraft as the method of transport. Who inspected that aircraft before takeoff? Because every time an aircraft takes off, there's always an inspection. It lands, there's always an inspection before its preparation for the next trip. And we are talking about a military unit. A military unit is always precise in all its mandates. So if there was any little single mechanical issue with the aircraft prior to takeoff, it should have been noticed. The other question becomes, the Navy, the Air Force pilots are always the best pilots you will ever find anywhere. Military pilots are not your JKIA trained pilots or your Heathrow pilots or Emirates pilots. They are very well trained in all manner of situations, all manner of combat situations, any kind of issues, very dangerous, even for example in cases of explosion attacks and all those kinds of issues. So the question is, what is the issue that really developed that these guys could not handle, that it had to turn so tragic? Ama ni mimi na overthink. If I'm overthinking, Kenyans, please overthink with me. The other question becomes, if there was an issue that these guys could not handle, why did they make the first attempt of throwing the CDF out? I mean, we are the Air Force. We know, jump this guy out of this copter before, because the kind of situation we have, we cannot be able to manage. So let's have the CDF and some of the other members out before this thing gets haywire. Of course, the pilot would be the last person to ditch ship. Why wasn't there such an attempt? And what I'm really interested in seeing is the flight information that is always recorded on the inaitwaje stuff. All aircraft have this that records all kinds of radar information in the cockpit, the flight information, any issues that all the flight informations in the aircraft. There's always that. I'm really interested in seeing that report released. What is that system saying? I want to really see it. I want to really see it, so that we can try and understand what was actually happening, because there's a lot of questions we are asking about what was really happening. Were these guys actually on their right mind when this problem began? Because a military chopper doesn't just crash and kaboom. These are people trained in the most versatile of manner to handle the worst of situations. They could be in a war and are being shot at using heavy artillery. So you want to tell me that they couldn't handle such a situation? So I'm actually asking, were they in the right state of mind? Were they alive to begin with? Were they alive? Oh. Kizungu mkuti. The other question is, where had the CDF last eaten? Just out of curiosity. Walikuwa wamekula place moja hao watu wote. Who had served them? Who had prepared that food? Like, nani aliassemble lile team itakuwa inatembea na CDF your day? Nani aliassemble? I want to know all these things. I want to know all these things because I'm getting so speculative and I'm overthinking. Who? Where? How? I want to see. Can they be able to do postmortem reports on all those bodies? Because I want to really understand what was the body of the CDF like. Because, this guy was physically fit, even at his age. And so why all the other officers with him? They were all physically fit. But what was the state of their bodies? Can we reconstruct their bodies just minutes prior to the crash? Because we have seen cases, and this is making me overthink. and I know I'm not the only one overthinking, but In truth, I really want to have some of these questions answered. Because in truth, the burden on the current president of the Republic of Kenya is not to prove how the CDF died. It is not to tell Kenyans how the CDF died, but to prove his innocence. In fact, some would argue that it is actually more of a burden to prove that he is not guilty of the death of CDF Francis Omondi Ogolla. And why do I say this? Number one, a military chopper doesn't just crash. And if it crashes, these guys know how best to manage those kinds of situations. And they survive even crazier things than crashes. And the question is, how did the copter just crash and kaboom, fire? That the CDF couldn't even jump out? Because of course I can imagine the problem started in the air. So during that short period of flight, I'm asking questions of, couldn't they make an attempt of jumping from the crafts, especially jumping the CDF out of the craft together with some of his other colleagues? Immediately there was a crash. You want to say that there was no several seconds that could have been critical in having the CDF out of the craft. Whether he will get some broken bones or not is but he is hospitable and manageable until the craft kaboom, okay, or rather burst in flames, for those who think kaboom is too dramatic. The other issue that comes into question is the president, his body language when he was addressing Kenyans. I was studying his face closely, and my Kenyans, hapo kwa comment section niambie, go rewatch those videos of the president making that address. Tell me what his body language makes you think, his facial features, his tone, intonation. Tell me what you think about it and what you think it communicates. Because to me, it does make more language than his words. So in reality, the president has to prove to Kenyans that he is not guilty of the death of Francis Omondi Ogolla, whether he likes it or not. And this is because in the courts they say that a motive is key. The question is, can the president can the president's motive for the murder of Francis be identified? Together, the first thing that comes to mind is the election of 2022 August. And the president was very categorical that Francis Omondi Ogolla was among a team of the military junta, forgive me for the use of the word junta, that went to Bomas in an attempt to overturn his election. The president was very categorical about that. Whether true or not, I do not know. Mnaweza mkaniambia hapo kwa comment section, was it true? Was Francis Ogolla among those people? Was there such a group of people that had got there to do that? So this raises questions. If that was the case, it raises the question of whether the president is someone who can forgive such a grave sin. Because if that really happened, then it raises the questions of did the president have choices in the appointment of the CDF? Did he have choices? Because he did come out and try in an attempt to explain to himself. He said that, oh yes, I have Kenyan's interest. I don't care whether he attempted to do that shenanigans, but because I knew he was the best person for the job, I gave him the job. And those videos are there circulating everywhere. So the question really is the president one to forgive such a grave mistake? Or rather, is the current holder of the office of president a man who can shy away from committing murder? When I ask such questions, people like Jacob Juma starts popping in my mind. They start popping in my question. The 2017 election starts popping in my mind. You know who died then? People like Orwa Ojode starts popping in my mind. They start popping in my mind. The question really is the president able to do such a thing as murder someone over a thing or the other? The other issue is, what has been the relationship between him, the president, and the military? That is not a question I intend to answer or even attempt to answer, like I have some of the questions. Those in the military can tell us, or those who know friends in the military, those who know something in the military, wajaribu kutu explainia what has been the relationship. Because in reality, although the president is the commander-in-chief, the military will first take the word of the CDF before the word of the president. And that is how countries always run. For example, an order can be given by the president to attack a certain area. But if the CDF says no, what do you think is going to happen on the ground? Is it attack or not? Not. And we have seen this even in military movies. For example, an order can be given to attack a certain period, can be given to a sergeant. A sergeant manages a troop. So a sergeant can be given an order to attack, but the sergeant assesses the situation and says, although I've been given the order to attack, I cannot attack because of these and these issues. So what will be his order to the personnel on the ground? We hold our grounds. When he gives such a command, will they bypass his order and go to the president's or the seniors' order? No. So in this case, I'm just giving an analysis of the CDF military president commander system. They will go with the word of the CDF. So what has been the relationship between these two? Hmm? Hmm? Anyway, the other question becomes, there has been this story about the president saying that he was going to punish rogue military officers. Can the president prove to us that this was not such a case? Because in reality, we are holding him already guilty. It is upon him to tell us that he is not guilty. Our verdict before hearing him out is guilty, guilty, guilty. Can he prove that he is not? Undoubtedly prove that he is not. This is Kenyan Opinion TV. Some of these questions I'm raising are controversial. Controversies. Call them controversies, eh? Not just controversies, you can even call them conspiracy theories. Yeah, conspiracy what? Theories. But the question becomes, what if this was a murder case? What if the CDF had been dragged? The CDF, the pilot, and the other members of the crew had been dragged. And the two survivors have more questions to answer. In fact, they should be held as accomplices. The military should be holding them. They should be under chains. Because they have to explain what was happening in the chopper. They are the ones who hold the bulk of telling us what was actually happening in the chopper. Inside the chopper. What was happening. And unless they are able to prove that they are innocent, they are part of the members who should be held as possibly guilty until they prove that they were not, they are only survivors. They need to tell us why them and not the CDF, not Litali, not Sawe, not Nyambura. They need to tell us why, not them. Why? They need to have themselves medically scanned for any traces of, number one, drugs, poison, anti-venoms or anti-poisons. These are the kinds of things that we really need to have answered as members of the Republic so that we can have our hearts settled that the CDF died purely by accident and not foul play. And the other question is, what is going to be the political landscape of the Republic of Kenya? I think that is something we can discuss later to avoid making this video extremely lengthy. And as always, this is Kenyan Opinion TV. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't fail to tell me in the comment sections what your opinions are of these matters. Always run to our YouTube channel when you see these shots on TikTok or wherever else. They are always copies or rather short pieces of extracts from YouTube. So always run and subscribe to our channel, follow, check the whole videos there, their contents, and yeah, you'll be able to always understand the backdrop of all that are being shared. And as we await further news and the results of these investigations, I'm curious to have all the answers to the questions in the heads of the majority of Kenyans. Can the president prove that he was not involved? And if the president is able to prove that he was not involved, can he be able to prove that it was not a murder? And if it was a murder, who instigated it? There are two stories to this coin. It could be politically originated. There are more questions being raised. For example, the question of why there were changes in the military 3 days prior. Like currently the Kahariri guy, the Major Kahariri. Is he Major General Kahariri? Lieutenant Major General Kahariri. Hata title yake imenipotea kabisa. He was just promoted less than 3 days prior to. Why did the president make those changes? Less than 72 hours to the accident. And that is why I'm saying the president has to prove that he is not guilty. Mambo ni ngumu namna hiyo. To my fellow citizens, we have lost a gallant soldier. This is a point at which we need to stick together even more and understand that the enemy is one. We are all together in this. Our pain and suffering in regards to the general is one. We all don't know what happened. We are all speculators. And we are all lovers of our homeland and Republic, Kenya. I love my motherland. I loved Francis Ogolla. I love the military. Much as I hate to say this, I love the president, or rather the office of the President of the Republic of Kenya, regardless of who holds it. I always respect it, even though sometimes it's hard because there's so much crime being peddled out there by the holders. But I've always loved my motherland much enough to love that office. I may not like the holder, but the office I respect. I pray that Kenyans are going to get to such a point that we can create political tolerance even in our hate and our love for each other, politically, economically, philosophically. And I pray that we are going to approach this Ogolla issue from a point of love for our motherland. Even to those investigating these issues, we want to know the truth. Give us the truth from a point of love for your nation. All we want is the truth, nothing more. However brutal it shall be, we are ready to take it. We are ready to take it. But help us solve the mysteries in our heads and help protect my motherland even from the thieves that have gone on a rampage against our motherland. I want each and every Kenyan to always ask themselves that question. Do I love my country enough? Every action I take, does it show that I love my motherland? Those in government, those in the opposition, the local, watu kama mimi, ambao we hold no titles, we hold nothing, we don't have anything, we don't even have jobs. Let us always ask ourselves, do we love our motherland enough to do what it takes to show that we love it? Again, Kenyan Opinion TV, I wish you all the best, and I hope that as we seek for these answers, that we will get them, and when we get them, we are going to get satisfied. It's going to be a very painful period of time, especially on all fronts, from political and economic, financial, unity perspective. It's going to be very hard to convince Luos that it was not a tribally instigated murder. But let us all know that by the end of the day, the enemy is only one. The enemy against unity of the Republic of Kenya. So I wish you all well, and I hope that God is going to give you all peace and love you and show you that He loves you all. I love you all, and I wish you all the best. Kwaheri.